So in today's sporting culture, one of the biggest complaints I hear from coaches is about the entitlement of athletes, like their lack of gratitude for what they do have. I wouldn't say that's true about all athletes in my experience, when I get to know them. But for those that is true, I would say it doesn't just come from their parents, like we like to blame. It comes from a lack of awareness of what they do have. It's like that David Foster Wallace story about the young fish swimming in the water. Like, what is water? The two young fish ask the older fish, right? Athletes just don't know until they've been helped to become more aware, right? And that's what community service does. That's what impact projects do, like we're going to talk about today. When you take an athlete and you put them in an environment that exposes them to experiences that are very new for them, right? And when they get to see firsthand the difficulties others experience around poverty or lack of resources like facilities, coaches, gear, equipment, even just nutrition, food, well, you expose people to that and it will change their perspective forever, for life. And that's why I'm so passionate about today's episode, because we get to spend time with Graham Roxburgh, who has created an organization that I think is a great model for what we need to be doing more of with today's athletes. Now, this is part 2 of our conversation with Graham Roxburgh. If you missed part 1, be sure to check it out. Graham is the founder of Team Up, an organization that leverages the power of sport to enhance community development projects around the world. Graham is going to share the inspiring origin story of Team Up, which was born from a desire to move beyond simply playing games to actively assisting local leaders in their efforts to transform their communities. The conversation highlights Team Up's unique approach of listening to local needs and providing resources, including teams, coaches, equipment, and energy to support existing initiatives in areas like education, nutrition, and community building. This episode also is going to touch on the profound impact that these experiences not only have on the community served, but also on the athletes and coaches who participate. Welcome to the Coaching Culture Podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you unlock your leadership potential and create winning team environments. My name is JP Nurbin, and I'm joined today by my incredible co-host, Nate Sanderson. Betsy Butterick sat this episode out. Each week, we bring you practical tips and strategies to elevate your coaching. For more, explore our online courses and books at tocculture.com and betsybutterick.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter at tocculture.com for weekly culture building insights. I want to transition now, and this is going to be, it's just kind of into something that's another big, obviously, project of yours. It's been for a long time, which is Team Up. And I'm sure there's going to be some stories in this of your own team and teams and how that's impacted them. But yeah, like Team Up is something that's obviously very important to you. And it's something that I got to experience just last month, going to South America. Let's start by you just giving kind of the listeners an overview of like how Team Up started and the mission of it, and a little bit of what the impact is that it's having in the world.
Yeah, well, thanks for the segue. I mean, for me as a coach, I've always enjoyed the idea that I could give my players an experience that was beyond their normal. And we've all been to tournaments, we've all been to showcases, we've all been to whether it's provincial, state, or some type of championship. And those are really unique experiences. And if you're lucky enough, you get a chance to maybe go on a sporting experience to a different continent and you play and you see their culture. And so that's always been a big part of me, obviously growing up overseas. But if you can then add to that a level of service, a level of creating impact, and what I would say coming alongside local people, local leaders, whether that be other nonprofits, other churches, other, agencies that are trying to make a difference on the ground, and then they all of a sudden get a resource like a team or some coaches or some athletes or some sports equipment, or you name it. We talk about using sport to enhance community development projects. So that's been a big part of who I've been over my journey, both as a coach and for the last 30 years in running nonprofits or doing nonprofit work. So about 6 years ago, I felt more and more convicted that there was a unique place for an organization that maybe thought a little differently than maybe what we would hear as a sports ministry or organizations that use sport for good. And there's so many good ones. But I just thought a little bit about it, and it came out of my experiences largely in Paraguay over probably 8, 9 years, where we would bring a team down, we'd arrange some exhibition games, we would, have a chance to have a pizza with the team or, a beer or whatever, and we'd get a chance to share about our lives and what was important to us. And I thought that those were really important times. But one day I was having dinner with the director of the organization Team Up, now partners with in Paraguay. And he said to me, Graham, I love the fact that you're willing to come to Paraguay every year with teams or coaches, but playing against other teams and sharing your story is cool. It's just not actually what we're trying to accomplish. And I just felt so stupid because I know this and I actually teach this, and yet I wasn't living it out. That sometimes it's better that we actually maybe just listen to what the narrative is going on in a local context, and then ask the question, how can we assist what you're trying to do versus, hey, we're bringing a team, can you set up what we want you to do? And so that was really the culmination of a lot of time of thinking of, yeah, it's time to step out on my own and start a new organization that would really have the lens of assist as its key focal point. And so we talk about the blank sheet of paper. So whenever we go into a community, we're not coming with a particular agenda. This is the program we offer you. Can you run it for us? It's actually sitting alongside a local leader whose heart and whose vision is to see his or her community transformed, and to ask questions and to listen to what they dream about, and to see if there's some synergy or if there's an opportunity to assist. And so Team Up 6 years ago got formed because of some of those conversations of, what if we stopped coming with an agenda and actually start coming with a posture of, we're here to serve what you're trying to do. And so, yeah, over 6 years, we've now been asked to partner in 6 different countries and growing some domestic partnerships. We were just actually in a meeting 3 weeks ago with a local elementary school teacher, and it's not far from where I live. And it's a pretty, not tough neighborhood, but a neighborhood that maybe has families that are new to Canada, maybe have refugee status, displaced families. And this principle is like, we've got to offer these kids something, because some of the families don't have resources for organized sport. Some of the families, both parents are just working just to make enough money to make it happen where they can live here. So the principal actually asked us, would Team Up start with university students that want to make a difference? Would they come alongside our desire to provide a sport experience for these athletes? And really, that's the heart of Team Up. What if we could bring a sport catalytic event, catalytic injection of energy, or a component to what a local leader was trying to do? So that's what Team Up does. So I've started it 6 years ago. I have a couple of really cool people alongside me that have different gifts than I do, and they've helped structure Team Up. And lo and behold, the Canadian government gave us our charitable status, and we are now working in 6 different countries, and then also in some communities, both here in BC and now starting in Manitoba, not too far from north of where you are, Nate, to be honest.
There's one of the things that I think is really cool about Team Up is how, like you said, the big thing is that you're assisting, so it looks different in every place, right? And I even saw that as I was traveling around with you all in Paraguay. We were visiting one place where you had a soccer school that was not only feeding kids healthy, nutritious meals during the week, but I actually saw them teaching kids about electricity, like to be electricians, right? So you're teaching a trade. It's just all those things that you were offering in that school, but then that looked a little bit different than maybe a school that we were actually helping to start up, in a totally different part of the country, and kind of get them off the ground. Like, it was the needs of that community were different. I think the other thing that's really hard to understand is, in where we are, people that are listening to this podcast, most of us in the West, you know, sport is, it's just different, right? It's part of these things where people have options and choices, and I can go to this club or that club. And here you're going oftentimes where there is no a lot of options, and you can see really how sport brings communities together. I remember in one area we were in Paraguay where you saw other people from the community that had certain skills, and we were out there digging latrines and trying to put in a bathroom into this, kind of rundown building that used to kind of be a place where drug addicts were staying, and they're trying to fix this up so it's next to this football field. But you just saw everyone from the community kind of coming out. It was incredible. I mean, in another place we went to, the kids themselves were coming out and helping us to build this playground, to build these football fields. I mean, it was just incredible. And it really honestly really challenged me to even come back and how are we using sport in my own town here in Ireland to really bring the community together, or are we just making sport about sport? Like, it can be so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've hit it on the head, JP, in terms of it does something inside you. And then obviously with teams, it does something to a team when they experience the power of sport, but the power of sport to just play a note on a keyboard that's bigger and has a different narrative and a different story. And so, I'm super glad you got to experience some of the unique nature of Team Up, because it does look different, even not just from country to country. I was sharing with you that I was on Zoom earlier with a bunch of Ugandan community leaders, similar to some of the leaders you would have met in Paraguay. These men and women have a passion to see sport be, the tool that brings families together, brings communities together, provides services for the needs of that community, whether that's in education, whether that's in nutrition. The whole Paraguay story got started because after that dinner with that Paraguayan leader, he said, we're trying to build into communities, largely using other organizations, local leaders, maybe churches, maybe nonprofits, because there are so many kids that go undernourished every week. And we want to create these, what they call comedores, nutrition stations. So we added a sport component. And now there's 100 communities in Paraguay that are feeding kids, but also using sport to influence teenage lives and keep kids maybe out of things they shouldn't be in, and just having an impact. And then you start seeing parents come together to work on a work project. And sport, as you know, brings people together, but it can bring people together for something so much greater than that. I was in Uganda 2 years ago with about 15 athletes, and we did a couple sports clinics. We trained some coaches. We were serving in a few communities like you experienced in Paraguay, but we were asked to play a game, and it wasn't even like a legit game, and it was on a field that you would probably struggle to call a legit field. But 8,000 people showed up for this game, and we're talking about, athletes, some good university athletes, and a few athletes that played high school soccer or whatever. So, we're not a massive team with a big agenda to play important games, but we were asked by a local leader the value you would bring by stepping into our community and the vision you would give our community leaders to see how sport could impact kids in their community by simply playing this game and spending the afternoon. So we played this game. There's about 8,000 people. People are hanging in the trees overlooking the field. It felt like a serene movie scene. And it was a little bit overwhelming for our athletes, but just the fact that we could bring people together. And now we have an ongoing project in that community where the school and the local church and a few members of parliament in the local regional government have said, let's invest and provide an opportunity for kids. And now Team Up is helping coach their coaches. So literally one event, which was to inspire a whole bunch of people, has now led to an ongoing program that probably 400 or 500 kids in that area. And people literally walked 2-3 hours to watch this game. It's the power of sports, the power of bringing people together. And we've been able to serve in that community in so many different ways. So you've captured the essence of Team Up. How can we use sport to be a very vital part of a community development project? But you're right, it's way more than sport. It's sport bringing people together for a longer vision.
I was so curious on the trip because I was a bit of a skeptic, right? And I think I might have mentioned this to you at another time, but I'm like, here I am spending quite a lot of money on a flight to go 24, travel 24 hours. I mean, would I not have just been better to just give these people, the $2,000 that I spent to travel over there and be there, knowing that the dollar goes a long way. And yet being there in that experience, understanding the power of being with people,
Yeah.
something we recently talked about on this podcast, is just the power of being, but just like being with people and how much it meant to them. I was laughing so hard because we went to this one community and kids wouldn't stop asking for my autograph as if I was some like legendary player. And here I was laughing because I was like, man, I played for a year Division I basketball at University of South Carolina, and I signed more autographs in Paraguay than I did, on the sideline, because I was on the guy there on the bench. Nobody really ever wanted my autograph, but it was just, but they just really were like blown away that you'd go and you'd
Mhm.
spend time with them and play with them, and it was like, just you see us, right, and people care about us, that they would come all this way, and you could see visiting the various communities. Some have been long established, but you could see the lasting impact and how that energized the community and people there. It's just as much as people need healthy meals and food, they also need love, right? And just being there and loving them, like you say, is huge and so transformational, right?
Yeah. JP, here's how I'd respond to that. You're right. And you've obviously caught the vision of the power of presence, the power of being. I think being amongst others who do need love and who just need encouragement or need a jolt of inspiration. I think those are really important aspects. Team Up is for sure about that, but I would say we're equally about probably the work that was going on in your heart in that experience. And so sometimes people do ask me that question, why wouldn't you just send, 25, 30 grand for a project that could build something? Well, we do actually do that. And you got a chance to be part of, a couple of really cool community work projects that will bless a community long term. But I would say Team Up's other vision is, and maybe this is a cool pitch for other teams and clubs and coaches and athletes to get involved. When we set up Team Up, we set it up with the real deep conviction that serving is really important, because the people that get served, they need help, they need joy, they need hope, they need a sense of they belong and they matter. I think equally as true as the people that go to serve. And we've always said we're not just about assisting people on the ground where we participate and partner. We're actually about assisting the ongoing work of touching hearts of those who go and those who serve. Because I think we're actually probably some of the biggest recipients of that blessing or of that impact and maybe that transformation. It's one thing for us to look at a community, and if you could see some pictures of, the work project that you were part of, and down the road to see kids playing on that playground, kids playing on the field that was cultivated and built, kids being fed by the local church that sponsored by donating the property. It's pretty inspiring, but I think probably one day you'll look back and go, oh, yeah, but my life was shaped and touched. And I was deeply encouraged by those kids that came alongside me and picked up a shovel and helped me along the way. So I think there's a mutual benefit, and we call it the double assist. We're going to assist locally, but we're actually assisting, and you fill in the blank. It could be the transformation of our own hearts. It could be the development of the culture of our team that goes. It could be changing the narrative of our own lives when we get back at home to realize that we've been given a lot and we have an opportunity to be part of some ongoing transformation, whether it's here or in places like Paraguay or Uganda. So that double assist is really important, and that unique opportunity to dive a little deeper in our own lives and say, okay, we've experienced material poverty in this country, and it's in your face in some of the places where we go. It's uncomfortable, and maybe things are different. What does that look like in our lives when we're back at home? And poverty takes on many shapes and sizes and forms. And maybe it just looks different, but maybe we're equally as impoverished, and we got to probe and explore, how do we solve some of those needs in our own lives? And what are the answers to those questions? So, yeah, there's that double impact that probably is, one of the major reasons I started Team Up.
Graham, I want to go back to something that you said kind of in your origin story here with the vision for Team Up. You used this phrase, I felt convicted. And if you think about just sort of that time in your life, I mean, here you are, you've built this really successful program, you have multiple national championships, you've become, part of the elite in your sport. And I think a lot of times as coaches, I just finished a book called The Why is Everything. And it was about some NFL coaches and talked about Sean McVay and his, pursuit of the Super Bowl. And he finally gets there and discovers sort of this emptiness at the end of the rainbow. Um, I think when coaches hear about this vision, there's something maybe that stirs in our hearts. But for you, it was really personal. And I know faith is a component of that. And I want to give you permission to be authentic in how you want to answer that. But what was that conviction like where it was, I can't just coach soccer when I see these needs and know that we could be involved here?
Yeah, thanks, Nate. I appreciate it. And faith is a large part of what shapes, well, really the catalyst or the core of what shapes kind of how I approach coaching and how I approach the startup of Team Up. But it's really this inner voice inside me that says I crave to do something that's meaningful beyond maybe my immediate pressures or immediate success targets. And so, Sean McVay is not the first person that's ever said, it's crazy. I thought I got to the top of the mountain and it was going to feel great. And it only felt great for a few minutes. And now it's, how do we repeat? Or now what's next? Because we've done that and it's not as fulfilling. So I think all of us were innately created to have a desire to belong and to have a desire to do something meaningful, which we call purpose, or to have a desire to know that your life counted to make a difference in the lives of others. So both in coaching, if you had said to me, Graham, congrats, you've won a lot of championships, you've won a lot of conference titles, you've grown a program from literally nothing to being an elite program that can actually compete against some legit Div 1 programs in the States. I would say that's awesome, but it's pretty unsatisfying in the big picture of life. Whereas if you said to me, let me show you some impact that you had in this young lady's life as she struggled through some of her emotional struggles in university, but now she's a vibrant community leader. Or this person lacked a lot of confidence, but now she's somebody that will stand up in front of hundreds, maybe thousands, and talk about what's important to her. If you showed me, the success of beyond soccer and over time had many lives that had been touched and impacted, I would look back and go, wow, that's way more fulfilling than maybe another championship ring or a banner in our gym. I can't lie to you. Those are also fun, but they're not the be all end all. And so I think there's times where we've maybe won a championship and I felt less satisfied than years where we've lost in the national final, but we've had some pretty amazing experiences as a team. And maybe a quick story, we lost in the national final 2 years ago in a really devastating ending, literally in injury time. We gave up a pretty soft goal after probably dominating a good chunk, of the latter stages of overtime. So probably one team was going to win. And in the end, we didn't. And the world would have looked at that as, well, you almost got to the pinnacle. But then a few months later, we all got on a plane and we went to Peru. And we got a chance in 2 or 3 communities in northern Peru in the Amazon to just invest in some communities that have very, very little resources and kids that are amazing kids but have very little opportunity. And we helped actually 6 communities through whether it's churches or some other organizations we're connected to start soccer programs. Well, this week I got in my WhatsApp chat with our Peruvian leaders pictures of literally 10s and 20s and 30s and up to 100 kids in each of those communities now participating in sport, now getting a coach that can lead them through a practice and that can bring the community together. And I look at it, and if you said to my players, what was the highlight of that year for them, they wouldn't say, well, making the national final, winning the conference championship. They would probably say that 10 days together in Peru where we saw tangible impact in the community. We met some amazing people, and we ourselves were deeply impacted. We sat in one room during our debrief one Saturday night after spending time in a community, and my athletes were in tears. Some of them were in tears because they couldn't grasp how is it that people that have so little have so much more joy than what we experience in our North American context. And so some of the tears were sadness of, I don't know what to do with this, but it was a shared experience as a team. Some of us had tears of joy because we discovered there's so much more than just what we think we're living for. And so Team Up has had that ability to kind of unpack that. So coming back to your question about conviction, just a deep inner conviction that I have, and it does come in my faith and in my belief that, Jesus has done so much for me. I want to spend my life doing a lot for others. And, in some ways it's feeble, in some ways it's profound, and somewhere in between those two things. But it makes such a great difference in my own heart and in the hearts of our athletes, the hearts of coaches. When you get to serve and you get to create a space for belonging for others, you begin to discover there's more to life than what we think.
Yeah, there was tears on my trip. There's a lot of tears of laughter. I'll be honest with you. We were having a great time too. Just I got to see you for a few of the days, and I had one of my former players that I had coached 15 plus years ago. He met up with us, and Clint Halliday, who's been on this podcast. He's a youth soccer coach from Utah. He joined us as well, and we got to witness also how you facilitate for these teams, right? So you had a men's college soccer team visiting and doing the work. They got to play competitive games against some of the local competitive teams there in Paraguay. And yet you talked about those debriefs, right? And I think that's one of the things that's special. You're going out, you're not just serving, but then you have a structure for teams to really reflect on the experiences so they can really soak up what the learnings that are there for them and the growth that's there for them. And I think it's a lot of in that environment, that intentionality that really makes it special. I think there's a lot of and I'm mentioning that one is because I think some coaches are listening to this and going, oh, maybe I want to go on a team up trip. And I think that'd be great. But even in not, I think you're still talking about getting your team out and serving, the importance of that. And every coach, Nate can take his team out in Iowa, do some serving, but then it's about bringing the team back and having some reflection around what do we experience? What are we learning? What are we seeing? Helping people to process that. I think is really important.
Yeah. The power of that, JP, shouldn't be underestimated. And I'll give you a quick story. So, in Canada, one of the better teams on eastern side of Canada is McGill University. Great coach, great program, great people, great institution. And they've now been on a team up trip twice. And I've had the privilege of connecting with their coach. The first time they were going, the coach wasn't totally sure. He knew that we were doing some community work, clinics in the community for kids that have very little. And then they wanted us to organize quite a few games for them. And I said, Jose, I'll set up whatever you want because I'm blessed that you would bring your group with Team Up to serve the needs of what Team Up's doing on the ground. And I said, but my one caution to you is, having done this for many years, your athletes are going to actually mutiny on you if you keep scheduling practices and games, because they're going to go into 2 or 3 of these communities and they're going to discover pretty quickly, as much as they're there to serve, they are gaining and getting a lot from just spending time with awesome people. Don't even speak the same language, but everybody communicates either through football or for serving and loving. And so he sent me a note at the end of a 12-day trip and said, you were right. Too many games, and my players didn't want to play in the games because they didn't care. They play enough games back in Canada. So we set up a couple cool experiences for them. They played, I think, the top pro team in Paraguay. But he said the real richness of the trip was seeing my athletes come together and talk about what they were experiencing. So, obviously you go to serve and you go to impact, but one of the great benefits of a team going together is the investment in each other's lives. And it can only take team building to a whole new level. And then those debriefs. So on the McGill trip that happened last year, I wasn't there. I'd already come home, but our Team Up staff member texted our staff group chat and said, we just had an unbelievable wrap-up debrief where girls were in tears. And some of those tears, again, were because they're wrestling through, well, what does this mean for me? Some of the tears were full of joy because they'd finally found a little bit of a freedom of, I get to use sport for something really awesome and great. And that's pretty freeing when you're not just stuck in this is all about me. And so to see some of the attitude change, the willingness to risk and step outside of comfort zones, and the coach pulling it all together, like at the time, I was like, man, I want to be part of that team because they just experienced an unbelievable depth of community that they probably wouldn't have had an opportunity to do if they hadn't journeyed or waded way beyond their comfort zone. So, JP, to your point, there's power in that, and there's power in debriefing, and there's power in sharing and actually asking the questions, what is this doing in your heart, and why is it doing that, and how do we start grappling with some of those issues when we come home? So again, Team Up is not about sending teams only on trips. It is about serving locally to the needs of our leaders. But one of the things they ask for is, could you bring a team to serve? And so then there's that double assist where we want to impact a team and be a resource for a team to grow, but also then have that team do something meaningful on the ground wherever they go.
Yeah, another story I want to share from my time back on the debrief was because myself, Shane, and Clint had, debriefs of our experience. We just really needed to unpack that because there were so many things that happened. But one of the days that really stuck out to me was, I'm such a doer. Like I want to get stuff done. I want to get my hands dirty. I wanted to get out there and work. And we had this one day where, due to heavy rains, we weren't able to start project on this, amazing kind of plaza with a football field and volleyball court and benches and paths and playgrounds, that it was going to be the center of this community. And so we're just sitting there on the side, just all feeling sorry that we don't get to start the work. And like 3 or 4 kids come up, and like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't speak Spanish. They don't speak English. And we're just kind of looking at each other. We wave. I get through my 2 sentences of Spanish. And then finally it's all right. I need to go run and find a soccer ball, even though I haven't kicked a soccer ball in years. But I get out there and we just played soccer. And like what was 3 or 4 kids turned into 30 kids within like 30 minutes. And we've played all day in the streets there. I say a street, it was just a clay road. And then the next day, kind of mentioned this earlier, but like, we're starting work on this project, and this one young man here who's like, it looks like he's, 8, but later learned he's like about 13. He just was so malnourished, but he's organizes all the kids to come back out from the houses, and they're out there, and he's ordering them around to dig and get the rakes. And it was just, is an amazing thing. And in our debrief, we just kind of came back to this idea of just the power of just being with people, how that impact on us, what it meant for those kids. And yeah, it's just a real special experience that you're able to create the conditions for amazing things to happen, and it's amazing how those things kind of emerge.
Yeah. I'm so glad you experienced that. That's pretty common on our trips. I actually say in some of the orientation meetings that we have when we take a team, we're taking a men's volleyball team back to Paraguay in May, and we had an orientation call this week. And we've got players coming from about 4 or 5, maybe 6 different programs that actually compete against each other in Canada West, our conference here in Canada. And it was really unique to see rivals on a Zoom call start to form a team. And one of the things I said to him, I said, you're going down and you're going to do work projects, and the work projects will be build a classroom or help a community enhance some of its infrastructure that can bless a community. You're going to play in a tournament because the tournament is catalytic and actually a really cool story. 6 new sports schools in that region where we host the tournament actually got started because people saw the inspiration of using sport to bless their community. So, there's long-term impact just from sporting events. But I said to the guys, and it's what you experienced, JP, don't underestimate the times between the scheduled events, because that's actually where real impact happens. It might be a conversation with one of your teammates on this call where you start to discover that the person you play across the net from actually has a real life story that's valuable for you. Don't underestimate blessing a kid that wasn't supposed to be in your day's agenda, but all of a sudden showed up like you just talked about. And who knows what the impact that will have, but I do know it will be an impact. And not just with what we built or what the legacy is we left, what happened in that kid's heart when some team from North America and some coach from Ireland showed up to just bless his community, and what that impact will have as a trickle effect. I have stories beyond too many to tell today, but that show 5-10 years on, wow, you could pinpoint back to that afternoon when a group of kids played soccer with a group of North Americans and something incredible came out of it. And there's a trickle down effect. So, yeah, it's pretty cool to be part of the joy of just going and serving with a blank piece of paper and saying, how do we use sport to bring a blessing while we actually receive a blessing?
Well, Graham, we'll get you out of here on this, and I know JP will prompt you to kind of share a little bit of your contact and how people can learn more about Team Up and all the great work that you're doing. As somebody, again, sitting stateside, I'm thinking through, my own experience with high school athletes, and it seems so difficult to get 4 practices and 2 games in a week during our season, or find time to get together to work out in the summertime. And yet there's part of me that almost feels refreshed in some way, of like, but this is really why we've been given sport, is
Yeah.
not just to make a ball go in a box or go through a hoop or what have you, go across the net. So for somebody that's maybe feels a little conviction, like we talked about before, of what more could I do with my team, it's not within the realm of possibility to build out an international organization from Springville, Iowa, what most likely. But for coaches that feel a little that prompting, what would you say to them?
Yeah, really good question, Nate. I think my immediate answer would be find some creative ways. Doesn't have to be a lot of energy, doesn't have to be a massive project, that you could just bring your athletes and your program uh, into an experience where people are going beyond their comfort zones. People are doing things that are bigger than themselves and thinking about others. And if sport is the tool that can bring them together, whether that's to go and serve, whether it's to link arms with an organization that's making a difference in your community, or slash maybe sometimes, and there is some uniqueness about traveling outside of your area, you get the team bonding, you get the shared experiences, you get the corporate outside your comfort zone experience. So whether it's local or going beyond your borders, and those borders could be state borders, they could be national borders, I would just simply say invest some time in saying, how can I bring that value to my athletes? Because it's actually been proven and certainly documented over time. Those are the things that your athletes will remember in 5 and 10 and 15 years. Those are the things that will shape some of the thinking and maybe some of the heart transformation that probably most coaches long for. I mean, yeah, we all want to win, we're competitive, but I think when we sit down and really reflect on it, winning championships is great, winning games is great, giving kids experiences to compete is great, but maybe there's more. And if you took some time intentionally to say, how do I serve and how do I use sport as a tool and actually bring a value and an experiential opportunity to my athletes, probably coaches will feel that much more fulfilled and feel like that conviction you talked about is being fulfilled or being met. And yeah, I got to warn you, if you do it once, you'll probably want to do it more than once, because it becomes part of who you are. And I think you'll be that much richer for it. And I think your athletes will become that much more enriched by it.
Yeah, it's just so many good recommendations there, Graham. And I think that I've even seen this with my daughter's team. They're an under 10s Gaelic football team here in Ireland. And we're doing the Team Up with Teams program, where we're sponsoring and fundraising for a team in Paraguay that they have a connection with. And we're getting kind of exchanging photos and videos, and trying to help have a connection with the team they're sponsoring. But the cool thing is we're starting to organize these fundraisers, and there's a big sale on coffee during the club on Saturday mornings that we're going to run here in a couple weeks time. And there's so many cool things that are coming from this, from the girls baking goods with their parents the night before, to the girls going out there and serving our club and helping to bring the people in the club together by offering, coffee and baked goods where they can sit around while other people are playing, and just creating more connections, down to them just doing something that's a fundraiser that's not just for themselves. Like, I think
Yeah.
so many of the fundraisers are so they can get new gear, they get their track suits or whatever it is that people need to fundraise for. And it's just, to your point, just getting them to think about something else other than themselves, So I think it's just, it's a great challenge, and hopefully everyone takes this prompting. For those that want to potentially look at doing the team up with team program, like team up with the teams program, like my daughter's team is doing, or maybe they have a team they want to send on one of these trips, or maybe they want to put together an all-star team from their community or their an athletic department. They want to put together a team of kids, to go forward there. Like there's so many ways you could do that, but where should they reach out to you?
Yeah.
What's some of the process there?
Yeah, I'm fortunately I have some staff that understands social media really well. So one way would be, DM us on Instagram at teamup.world, and you'll be able to see some really cool reels and pictures and images of impact. So that would be one way. Another way would be email us at info@teamup.world. We often get other organizations or club teams are saying, hey, we've got a bunch of gear that we'd like to donate, and to be honest with you, that's not why I started Team Up, but locally, if there's ways that, a team can say, we're going to do a shoe drive or a cleat drive, and that way we can bless about 800 kids in Malawi where we are working with them regularly. That would be a really unique opportunity. So we'd love to share those opportunities. JP, you mentioned this idea of teaming up with teams. It's a concept I started a few years ago. My wife and I sponsor a kid through a monthly donation to an organization that helps them get education and a couple of nutritious meals a week. And, whether it's World Vision or Food for the Hungry, those types of things. I just said, what if we found a team? And we've actually started launching this pilot program. We're really grateful that your daughter's team would do this. We have over 130 teams, whether that's communities or actual teams, that Team Up has helped initiate in 6 countries. And all of those teams need more resources, need more connection, need more encouragement. And so we right now have 5 or 6 teams. My team at Trinity does one with a community where we're really connected to in Peru. And it's really not a lot of fundraising, but it's an opportunity as a team here to say, look at the difference we can make locally and internationally, even if we don't ever go there again. But we can bless a community and give kids an opportunity and provide some real tangible resources so that what we experience on a daily basis and take for granted, like showing up to practice with 25 soccer balls, they might actually be able to get a few more soccer balls that will enhance building into the lives of those kids. So teaming up with teams would be a unique opportunity for lots of teams to make a difference around the world. Or if you're interested in taking your team on a project, or like you mentioned, assembling athletes or coaches from your area, info@teamup.world. And we would love to facilitate it and talk to you and get you involved. And Team Up will grow. We don't want to grow too quickly because obviously we're a small staff team, but as we grow, we'll have more and more opportunities for impact. And we'd love to include more people that, just like yourself, have experienced the joy of serving.
Thanks so much for coming on, Graham, and for the opportunity that you've given me. Yeah, like you said, it's still having an impact, and it's changed who I am. So thank you.
Awesome. It's been so good to be with you guys. Really appreciate your podcast, and hopefully this added a little something different to the listeners.
All right, that's it for today's episode and our conversation with Graham. One thing that really stuck with me in this episode was the question that Graham posed to himself, which was, what if we stopped coming with an agenda and actually started to coming with a posture of, we're here to serve what you're trying to do? And I think that question doesn't just apply, obviously, in community service or impact work. It applies to our athletes. Like, what if we stopped coming with an agenda with our athletes, just started coming with a posture of, how can I help you? What can I do to serve you? Now, I cannot recommend enough for you to check out teamup.world. There's so many good ways for you to get involved with Team Up. We'll have more links and the details of this episode, as well as the show notes, which you can get in our weekly newsletter, the Team Culture Toolbox. Subscribe to that weekly newsletter at tocculture.com. And hopefully you feel inspired today to just go out there and use your platform, if you're a coach, a leader, to bring those people to go out there and serve other people.